I've been eating a plant-based diet for 13 years. And in this video, I'm going to share my experience going through that, as well as the one big takeaway I've gotten from going on this journey. So one day, 13 years ago, I got in my car after leaving my parents' house after a big meal, tons of dessert. My stomach hurt like hell. My stomach was burning. And I was like, what's wrong? And I didn't really think too much of it because that had happened to me before, but it happened again like 2 days later. And then it started to happen pretty much every time I ate. Not long after that, I started to get eczema. It's like this red, itchy blotches on your skin. I had it all over my arms and legs. Had no idea what it was. The eczema got infected, which caused this other rash to pop up. I had all these little bumps all over my arms and legs. All of a sudden, I had this crazy health issue in my life, and I had no clue what was going on or what to do about it. So I went to a doctor who said, "Have you ever tried using lotion?" And she gave me an antibiotic, which didn't help the infection go away. The lotion wasn't helping either. So I go to another doctor who gives me a better antibiotic, clears my infection, but the eczema stuck around. And I was so embarrassed by the way that I looked that I even wore long sleeves and pants during the summer in Tennessee, where I used to live, where it's hot as hell. And I avoided being intimate with my girlfriend because I didn't want anyone to see the way I looked. And I spent a lot of time sitting inside of my house on my laptop, researching what the hell was going on. I read every article I could about eczema. I watched every YouTube video. There wasn't the wealth of information on the internet 13 years ago that there is today. And so it took me quite a while to figure out what was happening. One night, I remembered it was like 10 p.m. in my dark living room, still trying to figure out this solution. And I come across this video that's talking about the true cause of eczema. And the video talked about how if your gut becomes toxic enough, it won't work properly anymore. It will start to see the food that you eat as a foreign invader to the body. It sends out these inflammatory markers in your bloodstream to try and capture those foreign invaders. Those get lodged underneath your skin, and that's what causes the eczema to appear. I started to understand that my gut was absolutely fucked up. And so I order this hit from that doctor with all these different powders and probiotics to try and restore my gut. And it kind of worked, but not really. And I also got this food allergy test done based upon his advice. And it came back that I was allergic to like 120 different foods. All the good stuff too, chicken and chocolate and potatoes and like all the stuff that I usually ate. So what had happened is I basically had a ton of inflammation and toxicity in my intestines. The environment inside my belly was not good, probably from all the years of eating chicken wings and drinking beer and Jägermeister in college. So I started to avoid all those foods that I was allergic to, and that caused the eczema to clear up somewhat, but it wasn't sustainable to avoid like over 100 foods. I mean, like garlic and onion were on the list. I basically couldn't eat anything. And I knew that this was not the core solution to my problem. If you know me, you know that I hate Band-Aid solutions to things. I always want to figure out what the core problem is and figure out how to fix it once and for all, because I've found that that is ultimately less work and will bring me a better quality of life overall in the long run. So my search continued to figure out what was going on. Not long after that, I was spending the night at my parents' house. I'm sitting on their couch watching TV, and I glance at the coffee table and I see a book called Eat for Health by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. I pick it up, start flipping through the pages, and I got so drawn into that book that I ended up staying up till like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I finished the whole thing. The book talked about a high nutrient diet as the solution to things like autoimmune disorders, which by then I learned That's what eczema is, just like psoriasis. It is an autoimmune disorder. Something in your immune system is haywire. And I actually learned that the majority of your immune system is your gut. They say like 60 to 70% of your immune system actually is the gut health that you have. And the book showed me that if you don't eat a diet high in nutrients, you're basically trying to build a healthy body with shitty materials. The book had this chart in it called the ANDI chart, which stands for Aggregate Nutrient Density Index. It's basically a ranking of every food on a scale from 1 to 1,000 in terms of how nutrient dense it is relative to how many calories it has per serving. Here's an example of what an ANDI chart looks like. As you can see, the things that are highest on the list are vegetables and fruits. And so I saw my issue because I had never been a big fan of vegetables or fruit. I mean, I had like the cluster of bananas on my counter, so I could put them in my protein shake when I was a college workout bro. I really didn't eat salad until college. And even then, it was at the like cafe and I put tons of cheese and ranch dressing all over it. So if my body was a house, I had built the house with really crappy materials. And right away, I flipped that. I started to focus on high nutrients. I started to drink green juices. I started to make smoothies every morning with tons of spinach and celery and carrots in them. I ate salad every day. I would make these vegetable soups with tons and tons of veggies in them. And I was literally only like 2 or 3 days into eating this new diet. And I remember standing in the kitchen in my small house in Tennessee at the time, and my body was just buzzing. Like it felt so good. And I felt like for the first time, I was finally feeding my body properly and I was hooked. So I kept eating this way. I focused on getting nutrients in. I didn't avoid certain foods. Like I would drink my green smoothie and eat my salad for lunch. But then if the guys were going to Mexican, I would go out that night and have a chimichanga with a margarita, bunch of cheese dip and all that. I was able to do that and my body still healed. My eczema in about 6 months of eating mostly a high nutrient diet slowly went away and never came back. I was able to start eating all the foods that the test had said I was allergic to. And in that book, Eat for Health, Dr. Joel Fuhrman talks about a term that he coined called a Nutritarian. That is someone who focuses their diet around nutrients, not around avoiding this or that food. So it's more of a focus on what you're going to include in your diet versus what you're going to exclude. To this day, I still eat this way. Most mornings I have a green smoothie. I actually make those the night before for me, my wife, and daughters, and they're all just sitting in the fridge when we wake up. That is a life hack that has saved me a ton of time. For lunch, I'll have quinoa with veggies and tofu. And for dinner, I'll generally have whatever I want, even if it's like some less healthy food. But because I'm getting high nutrients in for the majority of my calories, I'm really able to stay lean, stay healthy, and I rarely ever get sick. Now, as far as eating a plant-based diet goes, that is something that I grew to prefer over time. I started out pescatarian and then I went vegetarian. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been vegan. But I don't really like to say I'm vegan because, for one, there's a lot of people out there that preach you should be vegan and you're eating wrong. And I don't think that's the solution to us helping each other out. Eating vegan is a personal preference of mine. I'm not preaching it to other people. I'm not saying you should eat a vegan diet. In fact, I don't even know if that's the best thing from a health perspective. The thing I can speak about with certainty that worked for me was not so much the exclusion of all animal products, but a focus on getting my nutrients in on a daily basis. Also, I'm not perfect. I still have issues. For example, I am 2 weeks into a sugar detox. Like I've cut out sugar and I actually feel really good. But for the first week or so, I was like blowing my nose and feeling cranky and down. And I've struggled with that addiction to sugar really my whole life. That was one of the things that got me into this situation 13 years ago in the first place is I was eating dessert every night, and that's really bad for your gut. And so I'm not like some perfect health guru that never eats unhealthy. I smoke cigars, I drink a few alcoholic drinks every single week, and I still love going to the Mexican restaurant and eating so many chips that by the time the food gets there, I'm full. And you know, I'm having 2 margaritas to go with that. Now, some of you are probably thinking that eating tons of vegetables does not exactly sound appetizing. Here's one thing that I learned that helped me. In that book, Eat for Health, he talked about how our taste buds are actually programmable. In other words, they learn to like the foods that we already eat. My wife's late granddad used to drink the instant coffee, you know, those little individual packets that you dump into a pot with water. He loved it. And if you gave him like an Ethiopian pour over, he would think it was terrible because he's been drinking that old shitty coffee for his whole life. It takes about 3 weeks to reprogram your taste buds to something new. So you can't start a new diet and expect to like it a couple days in. You actually have to give it a little more time than that. But now I genuinely crave vegetables and fruits and things that are high nutrient. And it requires literally no willpower for me to eat the way that I do. So I wanted to make this video because I know we talk a lot about business on this channel, but I do believe, and this is cliche, that health is the foundation of a good life. I think if any of us lost our health or if our health was threatened, everything else that we currently hold as important would fade into the background as we dealt with this glaring issue. I don't want that to happen to me or you. And so I just wanted to share my story about what works for me. Obviously, I'm not a medical doctor. This is not medical advice. You should consult your doctor before making any changes. I was in a real estate mastermind years ago, and there was a dude in the room who was like one of the most successful investors. He owned thousands of apartments. The guy looked like he was one cheeseburger away from a heart attack. And as I looked at him, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got everything when it comes to money, but he has nothing when it comes to health. To me, having priorities that are that out of balance literally makes no sense. In the description, I'm going to link the Eat for Health book, as well as the Andy chart that I showed earlier. I hope that hearing my story has been valuable to you in some way. I'd love for you to comment down below, tell me your thoughts on this, and tell me what foods have worked well for you. Here's to you being the healthiest version of yourself in 2024 so that you can go out and crush it. Your body is literally the vehicle that you're driving in on the way to your goals. So let's work together and get as healthy as we can be. I'll keep you updated on my sugar cleanse. Thank you guys for being here. Smash that like button, subscribe if you are new, and I will see you soon.